Evening. Good to see you. Around with this whole family here. It's a good thing you came, otherwise half the temple would be empty. Family members and extended. Tonight we're very happy to have a special guest tonight, Amala Bhakta Prabhu, and he'll be speaking tonight. He's from Los Angeles, and he's been a devotee for a very, very long time, and is an author and a dramatical speaker, and he has many of his books and CDs over there, so we're very happy, and we want to give him a warm welcome.
So thank you very much for coming. It's my pleasure and privilege to share with you these glorious, wonderful teachings that Srila Prabhupada has delivered to us from India. These are teachings which can benefit us in many, many ways. And tonight I've prepared a brief talk because I only have, I think, about 35 minutes to say what I normally say in an hour and a half. So please forgive me if it sounds a little bit brief, a little bit shortcut. But I'll give just the essence of the talk with fewer examples and fewer stories to go with it. The title of tonight's talk is the secret of experiencing divine ecstasy. And this is something that everybody wants, to experience the inner joy which comes from associating with Krishna. So without any further ado, again, thank you for coming. I will just do at least one Jai Radha Madhava, since I find great inspiration from that beautiful song. So please respond. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Yashoda Nandana Vrajana Yashoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Premsakahu Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shankun Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai, Mathura Dhamma Ki Jai, Mayapur Navadvip Dhamma Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Srila Prabhu's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 I'll be reading tonight from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, text number 62. Let me just go through the Sanskrit. Tam eva sharanam gacha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim stanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Translation. O scion of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. So Krishna is speaking, and he's speaking about himself when he says him. He's speaking about himself in the third person. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Please repeat. O scion of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated where? Where is he situated? In everyone's heart, yes. And that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature, the Rig Veda 1.2220, as Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything material is actually spiritual. But Paramam Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. What that means simply is that everything is coming from Krishna. But Krishna has a superior energy and he has an inferior energy. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, altogether, these are my 8 separated inferior energies. Besides these, there is a superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of material inferior nature. So although it's all spiritual, it's all from Krishna, but nonetheless there is the inferior energy which just is acted upon, and there is the superior energy which does the acting, which is us. The living entity gets what he deserves and is carried by the material body, which is created in the material energy under the direction of the Supersoul. Supersoul is another manifestation of the Supreme Lord, who lives, as I mentioned before, in the heart of every living being and every atom of creation. The reason the Supersoul is with us is we originally were all in the spiritual world, excuse me, and we decided to leave the spiritual world and become an enjoyer. There was, at one point, Queen Puranjani, the wife of King Puranjana, she was weeping, and a Brahmin approached her, but that Brahmin was really Krishna. And he said, my dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company to accept a position as an enjoyer of this material world. So we all left the eternal world, that's where we originally were stationed, simply because we wanted to taste what it would be like to be an enjoyer, to be a Purusha, to be a controller, to be a master. In the eternal world, everyone is a servant. Everyone is surrendered. Everyone is looking up. Everyone is glorifying God. In the material world, it is just the opposite. We generally want to be honored. We want to be glorified. We want to be applauded. We want to be appreciated. We want to be loved. The main point is self-love, whereas in the eternal world, it is Krishna love. Everyone loves Krishna. Everyone is thinking of Krishna. Everyone is doing service to please Krishna. That is the main idea, the main point in the spiritual world. But when a person no longer wants to serve Krishna and wants to be served as a Krishna, then he is no longer qualified to live in that world. Consequently, he is then deposited or sent down to this material world so that he can have his desires fulfilled. Along with him comes the Supersoul to help him fulfill his desires. And at the same time, when those desires become very prickly, very problematical, very treacherous, very troublesome, causing him misery, when that happens, then the Supersoul is there to give guidance, to give direction, to give understanding of how to get back to the spiritual world. In other words, our real place, our real environment, our true position is to be an eternal servant of God. Jivena Sarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. The constitutional position of the living entity is to serve God eternally, but he has free choice. He has independence. We're all fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord. Being fragmental parts, we can choose. Krishna does not force us to love him. He does not force us to serve him. If you want to serve yourself, if you want to be an enjoyer or Purusha, a controller, he said, fine, I've got a planet for you. Good luck. You're going to need it. Because it's a place where, although there is lots of pleasure, there is also lots of pain and suffering. And we can see, if we just turn on the news any night, you will see suffering of different kinds, those which come from our own bodies and minds, physical suffering, suffering from disease, suffering from injury, mental problems, anxiety, uncertainty, doubt, depression. So many difficulties beset us. Those are physical and mental. And then there are problems called intellectual problems, when the mind is not able to solve problems that it wants to solve. It gets stuck, or as one gets older, the intelligence doesn't work as sharply, as fast as it once did. So we have miseries from those things. And also, as I said, from these physical and mental problems, one finds himself spending lots of time going to doctors, trying to get well, trying to be normalized, trying to continue his life of enjoyment. But as one gets older, it becomes more and more difficult. So the super soul is there to help us, to guide us to a place like this, so that we can get the knowledge which is in this wonderful book, the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and find out and understand how we can return to the eternal world where there was none of those miseries, none of those difficulties, none of those anxieties, none of those problems that we are heir to in this material world. They come with the territory. They cannot be avoided. Just like a fish, if it jumps out of water, what does it do? It starts flip-flopping. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. It's unhappy. It's not in its proper environment. And consequently, it strives by flip-flopping to get back into the water where it's properly situated. So similarly, many of us here have come to that, if not all of us here, have come to the realization that there must be something higher, something better. There must be a state of mind where we don't have all these miseries, or if we have the physical problems, that we can transcend them. We can rise above them. We can be unaffected by them, undisturbed by them. Is there such a consciousness that will enable us to be able to experience the difficulties of the world and yet be unaffected by them? And that's what Krishna consciousness is all about. It's a different state. It's a different state of being. It's a being in which one experiences the same type of happiness that Krishna himself experiences. It is composed of the sense of eternality, that we never really die. One feels his eternality. One feels not only eternality, but transcendental bliss. Transcendental bliss is our nature, but we've been cut away from our transcendental bliss. We've been separated from it, because once we enter this world, we are covered with materiality. Materiality is like a cloud. It covers the soul. Or imagine a window. Normally you can look out of the window and you see clearly. You see light, you see trees, you see flowers. But when the window is clogged with dirt and dust and grime, then all you can see is a very vague bit of light. You cannot see clearly. Similarly, the soul, when it is clogged, when it is covered, when it is cluttered with all of the dirt and the grime of lust and anger and greed and envy, illusion, gluttony, sloth, all of these wonderful... Yeah, we got them. All of these insidious types of problems that we have, the kind of emotions that give rise to all of the miseries that we have. So therefore we cannot see clearly. We cannot see properly. And we cannot experience ourselves as souls full of this bliss, full of peace, full of strength, full of inner, as I said, inner joy and inner knowledge. Those are no longer visible. It's because it's like looking out through the dark, dusty window. You can't see clearly, and you can't experience we cannot experience ourselves clearly. So the pursuit upwards is to cleanse the soul of all of these different impurities, and by so doing, gradually the soul will begin to experience its own inner joy and inner happiness and inner strength, which I've just finished the purport and explain how that happens. As soon as a living entity is placed in a particular type of body, he has to work under the spell of that bodily situation. A person seated in a high-speed motor car goes faster than one seated in a slower car. Though the living entity... Jump to the wrong paragraph. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sarvasya Chaham Riddhi Sanavishta. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart. So this recommendation that one should surrender unto the Supersoul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna, with whom this dialogue is taking place on a battlefield, as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. and the supreme abode of all living entities. The resting place. Not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidence of great authorities, great sages like Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet, his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada ki. So, continuing on. So what this verse is saying, and again I will repeat the important part, by Krishna's grace you will attain transcendental peace in the supreme and eternal abode by surrendering unto him, not partially, not fractionally, but utterly, totally, completely. And what does that mean, to surrender to the Supreme Lord? Well, we all have an idea of what the word surrender means. For example, if you're on a battlefield and you're fighting with an enemy, and you see that the enemy is overwhelming, he's too powerful, you can't win, so what do? If you want to save your life, then you throw up your arms and maybe wave a white flag and let the enemy know, I surrender. What does this mean, to surrender? It means that I am at your beck and call. You are my master now. I will do what you tell me to do. Now, generally speaking, in the material world, since we are living entities and we have independence, as I already said earlier, our desire is to enjoy personally. Enjoy through the tongue, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the skin, the genitals. Personal enjoyment through the senses is generally followed. But in the Bhagavad Gita it mentions that an intelligent person does not follow that course, simply because it leads to various kinds of miseries. You become attached to some particular pleasure. Okay? Either it's the ears or the eyes or the nose. When you become attached to something, then you begin to feel that it's indispensable for your happiness. And when you feel that something is indispensable for your happiness, as somehow or other you can't have it, you can't get it, it's not available, it's not accessible, then what happens? You're miserable. Let's say, for example, you come here tonight, maybe you're expecting, I don't know what the diet, what the menu is, but I know at the Los Angeles temple we generally have sweet rice on a pretty regular Sunday basis, and usually halva. So if you're attached, let's say, to halva, or you're attached to the sweet rice, and you come there, and there's no sweet rice, there's no halva, you feel disappointed, you've been let down. You came here with an expectation, and you felt that this halva is the end-all and be-all of my coming to the temple on Sunday. So there's no halva. So where's the halva? Well, we didn't even get. We have something else. Well, but I came for halva, and so you become very upset, very disturbed, very shaken because of the fact that we are attached to this. That's what attachment means. I can't live without this. And some people do become, when they are attached, they can't get what they want, then they become very upset. Or you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're attached to a Breyer's vanilla ice cream, and you don't have any in the refrigerator. And the nearest supermarket is 5 miles away. And the craving is just killing you. It's overwhelming. It's just dagging you. So what do? You have to get into your car and drive 5 miles just to get and you stock up on it, so that the next craving that you have, maybe tomorrow night, you have enough and you don't have to drive 5 miles. So you get that, and finally you satisfy the craving. But of course what happens is that you eat it, you get full, you get stuffed, and then the next morning you've got a big bellyache because you ate more than you normally would because of the fact that the craving was so intense. So this is what attachment does to us. It makes us slaves of our tongue, our ears, our eyes, our nose, our genitals. And what happens is that we lose the innate freedom that we have to gain real pleasure, real happiness, which is innermost. A liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure. not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme Lord, Krishna. So that is the means. Now there are 9 different ways of doing that, and I'll get to that in just a few seconds. What does surrender mean in terms of a devotee? It means to accept whatever is favorable for discharging devotional service. Those things which are beneficial. I'll give you an example. For example, you have extra time on your hands, or you have extra money. If you donate extra money to the temple, this is a good use to accept whatever is favorable for devotional service. It's a good use of your time, of your money or your time. You give some service here. You may want to do some cleaning, or you may want to help out in the restaurant, or you may want to help out on the grounds. This is an excellent way of helping, of assisting, and utilizing your time in a very beneficial way to yourself and also to the temple. So to accept whatever is favorable for discharging devotional service, and also to reject whatever is unfavorable for discharging devotional service. I'll give you an example of that. A person comes up to you. Now we have 4 regulative principles: no eating of meat, fish, or eggs, or fowl. We also take no intoxication, and there's no illicit sex, and there's also no gambling. So a person says to you that, hey, I've got some nice drugs, or I have some nice alcohol. Why don't you come back to my pad and we can share a bottle and enjoy ourselves tonight? So now, if you want to do that, then what you're doing is that you're not only violating these rules or regulations which have been given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which do not help one keep a calm, controlled, steady mind. As soon as one enters into a state of intoxication, the mind undergoes a certain amount of change. And the change in it is not a good one, because one often loses the control over his mind. And in transcendental life, or to achieve transcendental life, it is very important to have control over the mind. So, accept whatever is favorable for discharging devotional service. Reject whatever is unfavorable. You don't give in to it. You don't yield to it. If you do, well, then you have to pay a consequence. So, second one, accept whatever is favorable, reject whatever is unfavorable. Believe firmly that the Lord will always protect you, His devotees. So that requires a certain amount of faith that Krishna is in the heart. Krishna is in every atom of creation. He knows you. He knows what you need. And He will help you. He will guide you. He will direct you in every which way if you learn to have faith that He will protect you as His devotee. So it becomes very important to understand that second principle, to believe firmly that the Lord will always protect His devotee. He wants to help the devotee. As I already said, the super soul is in the heart. He knows who you are. He knows your weaknesses. He knows what strengths you need. He's ready to give guidance and give help and direction. And He will, if you depend upon Him, if you pray to Him, really to get back home, back to Godhead, whence you came. Believe firmly that, as I've just said, believe firmly that the Lord will always protect His devotees. Feel dependent upon the mercy of the Lord. This is another very important principle. That generally, due to independence that we have, we think that we are the doer. That whatever we do, the result comes from our own endeavor. But as you go deeper into these studies, you find out that the Lord is allowing you or not allowing you. Your success or failure, you may think, is a result of simply your endeavor or your desire, but it's not. If you don't have a job, if you don't have food, if you don't have clothing, if we don't have rain, if we don't have sunshine, if we don't have air blowing, if we don't have all the things that are necessary for life to go on in a proper way, then how will you succeed in what you want to do? Or let's just say you have a good working mind, you have a good working body, But the Lord can prevent you from succeeding in a particular goal if He so thinks that you don't deserve to have that particular result. It's up to God. And so when we understand this principle that we have to depend upon God's mercy, and that whatever we're receiving is His mercy. He Himself says this in the Bhagavad Gita. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and is known as the supersoul. So He is arranging things, He is facilitating, He is enabling, but this is all being done invisibly. And simply with these material eyes we cannot see what is going on. But a devotee who depends upon the mercy of the Lord, when he receives something, and he is successful at something, he thanks the Lord because he knows Krishna has been assisting him and facilitating him. He doesn't take it for granted. And this is what a devotee is all about. He's in touch with Krishna. He's communicating with Krishna. He's thanking Krishna. And he's very appreciative to Krishna. And he doesn't stop thanking Krishna for the mercy that he's getting in the form of so many blessings. As I said, food and clothing and shelter and guidance and direction and education. And it could be different medicines that you need. Whatever, he's facilitating this. There are some people who are not getting these things due to their karmic reactions, due to unfortunate activities that they performed in the past, which prevents them from getting food for a day, or they're living on the street, or they're in threadbare clothes. They harmed, they hurt, they hindered other human beings, and as a result they're getting their reaction. This reaction is also given by Krishna to teach them, not to just punish them, but to teach them what it feels like to be in an unfortunate, painful, or pain situation, so that in the future, whether it's the future of this life or a future life, it will be in the subconscious, those pains that he experienced. We all know about phobias. We don't really understand them. But many of our phobias that we may have, which is a fear, and it's often unexplainable, but in terms of Krishna conscious understanding, it is explainable because, for example, if you were thrown off a cliff in your previous lifetime, then it's quite normal for you to have a fear of heights in this lifetime. I'm just giving one example. Many of us have different fears which are unexplainable. Many people get panic attacks because something reminds them, they don't know exactly what it is, but reminds them of something which makes them suddenly get afraid, become shaken, become anxious, and they can't pursue, they can't go forward. So, therefore, we need to understand this particular point, that we need to depend upon the mercy of the Lord, and that is often done through prayer. My dear Lord, please help me. Please guide me. I need your help. There are so many inexplicables in the world. There are so many things I have to deal with, so many problems which can eventuate. But with your mercy, with your power, with your guidance, with your direction, with your facilitating, I can get through all this, because you are omniscient. You're all-powerful. I'm not. I have limited power. So if I try to do it just on my own, I could fail. And I will fail if I don't have your mercy. So this is a good habit to get into. Another feature of surrender, as I've just said, to depend upon the mercy of the Lord, to have no separate interests but the interests of Krishna. So that means if you're doing some work where you might do household work, where you might be a computer engineer, you might be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, everything that you do it as a loving service to Krishna. Normally we just do it for ourselves. If you to pull a paycheck and to use the paycheck to buy a house or to buy a boat or buy a car or to feed our families, whatever, that's okay. But what Krishna is saying, go one step further. Understand that all this is coming from me. I'm the one who's delivering all this to you. So, therefore, you should have no separate interest outside of or other than me. So, when you do your service, you do it as a love offering to Krishna, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, do it as an offering unto me. In that way, you'll be free from the bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed upon me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and you'll come to me. And when you come back to me, you'll be peaceful, you'll be joyful, you'll be happy, you'll be ecstatic. Why is that? Because that is the transcendental world. It is called Vaikuntha, or the place of non-anxiety. In this world, we always have anxieties. Anxieties to achieve, anxieties to acquire the things that we feel are necessary or are needed. And until we have them, we stay in anxiety. And no sooner do we have them and we feel relieved and relaxed, then there's some new desire, which again provokes new anxiety. And it goes on and on and on and on. And last but not least, Krishna says that not only should we have no separate interests, but the interest of the Lord. In other words, everything you do it as a love offering for Krishna. You develop your love in your heart for Krishna, and as a result of that love, He reciprocates. And He reciprocates by injecting into the heart, into the soul, His love. And that translates itself or transforms itself into pure transcendental bliss. That is what Krishna is. So when He injects you, just if you get injected with some particular serum and it has some particular effect upon your body, simply when Krishna injects the soul with His own love, that love becomes transcendental bliss. And you're happy. And no matter what the weather is, no matter what the situation is, even if you lose your job or there's some difficulty even in the family, you deal with it, but you are not shaken, you're not upset, you're not disturbed because you have inner peace. Without inner peace, then we fall apart. But with inner peace, we are buoyed up, we are buttressed by the strength of the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful. And when we have that as our backup, when we have that to help us, to aid us, to abet us in our life, then we have strength. If I had more time, I would tell the story of Prahlad Maharaj, but unfortunately I don't. Last but not least, as part of the process of surrendering, Krishna says that we should be meek and humble. In other words, don't be arrogant. Don't be proud. Don't be self-loving, self-interested. Try to be more charitable, more giving, more understanding, more compassionate, more loving, more kind. If you do more of this shows a certain amount of not only the surrender aspect, but it's humility. Humility means I'm tiny, but God is amazingly large. My power is so insignificant. I could be killed in a second. But Krishna is eternal and immortal. And He can never be killed. He is forever. He's the source of my own being. The living entity in this conditioned world, the living entities are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So we living entities, if we want to do the very best for ourselves, we develop humility. That's why you see devotees bowing down to Srila Prabhupada. It's to develop humility. He's a perfect representative of Krishna. When you bow down to a perfect representative of Krishna, in effect you're bowing down to Krishna. You're in effect saying, my Lord, I recognize your power. Remember I said that in surrender, you throw up your arms and you recognize that He's the controller, He's the master. You're no longer the master. You rather take orders, you take guidance, you take direction from one who can give you perfect guidance. So when that happens, what happens is that you develop, this comes to humility. And the more humble that we are, the more surrendered we are, the more we give of ourselves to God, the more He lavishes Himself upon us in the form of transcendental peace and bliss and strength and love and knowledge and happiness. So, I'll end it there. Thank you so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to Lord Sri Krishna ki jai. Thank you. Are there any questions or any comments that anyone would like to make? No comments? Okay, is this the time for prasad? Maybe that's why nobody's making a comment. Nobody wants to ask a question. Oh, yes, please.
You're using the example of surrender, like in a battle. So generally that's considered not very good. You surrender, then you put yourself at someone's so-called mercy, and then you're taken advantage of. So how is this different?
How is which different? The surrender to the Lord?
Yes.
Well, in the case of the Lord, what I was trying to illustrate is only what surrender means. But in the case of, that's a nice question. In the case of the Lord, actually, you're not being disadvantaged because you have someone who is omnipresent, omniscient, all-powerful and all-loving. So you're surrendering to an all-loving personality who is ready, willing, and able and capable of making your life better and better so that you have more and more true happiness as opposed to the limited temporary happiness that we get by stimulating the senses through material acquirement. So therefore, although yes, you're in the material world, if you surrender, at least you have your life. So that's about all you can say because you're like a slave, do this, do that, do that, and that's the disadvantaged aspect. But in the case of Krishna, being his servant is a plus because you're serving the greatest, the most glorious, the most wonderful person, and he's waiting for you, and he wants to get you out of all the problems that you have. He's our divine father, and like any father, he doesn't like to see his children suffer. Krishna himself does not want to see any of us suffer, and so he asks us, please come to me. And if you come to me, I will get you out of your problems. But if we want to remain independent, if we want to stay proud, if we want to stay stiff spine, if we think that we can just do it on our own, Krishna says, okay, I'll let you do it. Go ahead and try. But eventually, we all have to come back to him. Because there can be mild problems, and then heavier problems, and then super heavy problems, in which case sometimes you get serious disease, serious accidents, serious injuries, and you just are completely in a state of helplessness, if not even hopelessness, and therefore you throw up your arms and say, if there is a God, please help me, and I'll believe in you. How many people have said this? I'll believe in you, yeah, if you do something for me. Not only that, but I'll even do something for you. Yeah, they can do something for Krishna. But, I'll give big contribution to my church, or to the Salvation Army, or whatever, or I'll put on a Santa Claus suit on Christmas, collect the Salvation Army, whatever. That's trying to be beneficial to the world. Is there any other question? Any other comment? Yes, please.
I just had a comment. I love listening to the Bhagavatam.
Yes.
I think it's such a gift for the world, and it's going to be amazing for, I would hope, millions, one day billions of years across the planet for decades and decades to come until someone else reads it, but they really don't have to because your characters are awesome. And it's such a great listen.
The characters?
The characters you do in the...
Oh, you're talking about my...
Yeah, your Bhagavatam.
I thought you were talking about the book. Oh, you mean the audio book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He's giving me some glorification, some praise. I'm not usually ready for that. So, but thank you so much for your comment. I very much appreciate it. And yes, I do have them here, and I brought a lot of Bhagavatams, by the way. So I did not put him up to that. That is not a paid commercial announcement. So, therefore, it is there. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is there. The Bhagavad Gita is there. Yeah. Anyway, my nature is not generally just to promote myself, but since somebody got the ball rolling, I'll keep it going. There are many different books that Srila Prabhupada has written. Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction. I also have Prabhupada Lilamrita. I have Teachings of Queen Kunti, Teachings of Lord Kapila. Many wonderful books that Srila Prabhupada wrote, which I had the opportunity to narrate, some in a very non-dramatic way, and some in a very dramatic way, with different voice characterizations, with sound effects. I come from way back, I'm in my 80s, so I go way back to the 1940s and middle 40s. We did radio then. We didn't even know what television was then. So that's what I was raised on, and I wanted to, and I went to college. It was my major, so I thought, man, why don't I just put this to use and do these dramatic narrations, and devotees can then they can learn the scriptures in a very I would say, rather painless way, or if your eyes are tired, you don't even have to read, you can just listen to them. So yeah, please avail yourself of them. They're all there. I'll be leaving tomorrow, and then I don't know when the next time I will be here, but if I can be of any assistance to you. I also have a USB of my entire collection. So if you want to get all the books, you can also get them on just the USB. You can just plug it into your car USB while you're driving. You've got a nice long drive, 100 miles, 200 miles. You can hear the Bhagavatam hour after hour. And I can't imagine how many people tell me that's what they do. They said, I used to listen to some dumb music, or I used to hear some boring news, which is the same thing. Somebody a car accident, and somebody got robbed, and somebody this. And only the names changed, but the action is pretty much the same. So benefit yourself, glorify Krishna, and improve the quality of the soul. By that I mean get rid of the impurities which are overlaying the soul, and thereby go back home, back to Godhead. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.